Welcome to Jewel in the Crown, Football Brisbane's podcast where we talk about women's football, the highest rating women's football podcast in Brisbane.
Yep.
I'm Peter Hodgkin and I'm here with Dr. G. How are you, Greg?
I'm pretty good. Enjoying the cooler weather, perhaps, maybe.
No beanie tonight?
Not quite.
It's
Soon.
coming though. It
is coming. Yeah.
It's coming.
Yes.
So there were no cup games to report on from last week.
Okay.
I did get it wrong last week where I said that there was a cup game between UQ, FC and Perth.
yeah.
It's actually on tonight, so we don't know. And we still have no idea about the draw for the Elaine Watson Cup.
Well,
we know who's
the
playing,
times, you
but
mean,
there's no games lined up yet. So that's happening. So I guess we can talk about the Champion of Champions.
Okay.
Because just to remind everyone what the Champion of Champions is that the Brisbane Women's Premier League, the Premier from that league will play the Premier from the other zones in the southeast Queensland corner.
Such as
Gold Coast, Sunny Coast and the Toowoomba, I'm not sure, southwest Queensland. Yeah.
Okay.
So and the BWPL is obviously Brisbane's Premier League, whereas the SEQ is it'll get replaced by the NPL next year when that comes back in again after they get the committee organised and do all the review. But the
who knows what's going with that? Yeah.
Expected result is that the NPL will come back and that'll be the Football Queensland League, and the WPL will be the Brisbane League, as what was going to happen this year.
Right.
So anyway, the Champion of Champions is set up for that. At the moment, we've got Eastern Suburbs on 24 points and Ipswich Knights on 21 points.
Yep.
So they're the top two. They're the two we think are going to fight it out. Now, Ipswich have a catch-up game against Mitchie tonight, as in Wednesday night, because that's what today is.
Yes.
In case you hadn't worked that out. But both of those teams had really tough games on the weekend, because East got over Power, who were like second bottom, 2-1. Oh, sorry, Ipswich got over Power 2-1, and East had to struggle to get past Mitchie 2-0.
Right.
And Mitchie is starting to get players back now they've been quite a few players out, so their squad's settled down and starting to strengthen up. So it could be a good game against Ipswich, but still in all, those two teams are the teams we think are going to fight it out.
Yeah. The interest of this happens a lot to Ipswich teams over the years, but during the middle of the season, a lot of those players come from the Defence Forces and get pushed away or moved away for work and
exercises,
that sort of thing. Yeah. So Ipswich are losing a few players about in the middle of the season. I know that. Maybe they'll pick up a few from the Q League somewhere. Maybe some
perhaps
teams.
If players from Pride can't quite survive the season, maybe.
Yeah.
But interesting that this weekend is the last round for the first round of those 12-team comps, which the W League was, but now it's got byes. Both Ipswich and East have the bye this weekend.
Ah, right.
So there's just a little opening of the door for Redlands in the Gap to maybe close up on the points table, but still expecting those two sides to battle it out through the second half.
Just with the Champion of Champions, does the Elaine Watson Cup winner somehow get involved with that? I can't remember what happens.
No,
that's just the winning
Premier,
of the Cup. Okay.
And away we go.
Okay.
So it'll probably make a little bit more sense next year.
Yeah.
And we don't have the SEQ League in there as well.
Yes.
So speaking of the SEQ League,
that's what we normally do each week.
there were a couple of games on Saturday last weekend.
There was.
Pretty straightforward wins, big wins for Mitchie and Power. Mitchie over Pride and Power over Rovers.
Yep.
The only interesting thing I found out of that round of games was Whitfield scored 4.
Yeah, it must almost pushes
her
well up.
right up into second spot on the Golden Boot. The games on Sunday, though, were a different matter.
Well, yes, they were very interesting, close games.
Well, Southwest Queensland took on Annerley. What was the score?
2-1 win to Annerley up at the range. Big confidence win for Annerley and a bit of a confidence shock to Southwest Queensland Thunder.
We have to wonder, Southwest Queensland Thunder lost to the Gap.
10-0.
Big score the week before. Young bodies, young kids, hard to bounce back. The young players often are up and down in that first year in senior footy. So it's probably a good time for Annerley to get Thunder. So they've got the points, which is going to help them.
A big thing. The only, it's a big loss for Annerley too, but Kate Deegan first came back after breaking a collarbone against Palm Beach, breaks the same collarbone against Thunder. So, Kate, if you do play again this year, and I don't know, maybe you're not, don't travel. Don't go outside of Brisbane.
Or use the other collarbone.
Yeah, that's really
that's bad
unfortunate.
luck.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine. I mean, she was obviously cleared to play, but you'd have to imagine that the shoulder wasn't quite healed and
Still a bit weak.
yeah, and it broke again. So that's really bad. That's sad. Very, very sad times.
And it didn't Southwest Queensland Thunder's chances of getting into that top 7.
Definitely.
That's 3 points they really should have been putting in the bank.
Yeah.
Not being disrespectful to
No,
Anna,
but
if you're trying to get up there.
I'm not big. We only talk the facts.
We do. We don't call Annalie boring. That's just Olympic, you said.
Goal scorers there for Annalie were Alice Foster with 2. I don't know who scored for Thunder.
No, it wasn't on the
washing line?
So Sunny Coast took on the Gap. Now, the Gap ended up 6-1 winners. Now, we thought this might be a bit of an interesting game. Fire having some good games, but the Gap starting to hit their straps a little bit as well with a big win. 1-1 at half time.
Very close. All the games were 1-1 all games were close at half time.
Now, Leah Curtis with a hat-trick.
In the end,
and the old firm of Blackburn, Stevenson and Flores all scoring goals as well.
Yep.
I'm not sure who scored for Sunny Coast.
Not on, yes.
Dave Binstead from Sunny Coast did say that they were looking forward to the game because they wanted to play the team that was the benchmark in women's football for the last few years. So it would have been a great experience for them. But he said, unfortunately, the game's going to be remembered for all the wrong reasons up there. They had 3 players carried off. Kira Burgess with a broken leg, Isabel Dalton taken to hospital with a suspected broken ankle, and Samara Christmas, who's their top scorer, did a medial ligament. Yeah. So it's a tough day at the office for Sunny Coast.
That's that's a season. Three players out for at least. Well, a broken leg you'd have to say the season. Medial damage probably a season, and if it's not a broken ankle, it's still going to be at least.
And with the way the SEQ League's set up, it's a sprint.
That's right.
Those first 13 games, they're going to miss the rest of those.
Yes.
This could severely hurt their chances of finishing.
Well,
in the top 7.
and I don't know how many players or setup they might have, but they might be struggling just for numbers too. Losing 3 players now at this time of year.
Well, I think they had a big squad. When Mitchie was up there, when I was still coaching, they had like a full squad warming up and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think they've got the numbers to cover it, and I'm sure they can bring players in.
I'm sure they can, but the quality for this level of football. I mean, they're obviously not a bad side, but still the Gap 6-1 winners.
Well, yeah. Interesting, Rob Askew from the Gap, the first thing he said when I asked him about the game was fantastic facility. So everyone loves Stockton Stadium, and it's a great place to play. He said they started well, but once they scored, they didn't play well after that.
Okay.
Half time, he did speak to them about getting the ball in between the lines and playing what they normally do. They were dominating possession, but not really hurting the opposition. So that a lot of passing across the back line, I guess, but not really getting in behind.
Yep.
Once they got their act together, that's when the goals came.
Yeah, well, 5 in the second half.
But the concern for the Gap was more that they're having all these flat patches.
Yes.
And he said that's something they have to work through because a couple of years of being the dominant team, and now they're getting flat and letting teams get into it. He did mention that the game against Southwest Queensland was more what they were used to playing.
That's right.
And poor old Southwest Queensland felt the force
yeah,
of
well,
that.
that's right. I mean, you'd expect the Gap to go win those games by a big margin.
Well, if they're on fire and they're at the top of their game, you'd expect
but even when they weren't on fire last year, they'd still be thumping the teams at the bottom.
Well, that team's at the bottom, but
Sunny's, yeah, exactly.
And South Queensland were sort of, they're more middle of the road. So anyway, big win for the Gap, and the Gap
important for them.
Just keeps going on.
Yep. So a big important game, and hopefully Sunny Coast season is not over. And I do hope all those players.
I think they've got. I don't think the difference between their top 5 and their bottom 5 is a great thing. Yep. It's not a big difference. So, and often that's the quality of your squad is, how well you do is not so much your top 5 players, but it's your bottom 5 players. How well your bottom 5 compete against the next team's bottom 5.
Yep. Who makes the least mistakes.
And if their bottom 5 is not too far away, then they're still in with a chance.
I know, and the sad thing is all these injuries. I do hope people recover well and get back and play the game and don't have another injury again. But, it is a contact sport. Sometimes knee injury, I've done both my knees and I wasn't involved in any tackles either time. I can't blame anyone else except...
You were just walking up the steps.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty
that's
close.
An age thing.
Well, I was younger at the time.
There was a game down the Gold Coast as well.
Big game. First, second. Palm Beach took on Easts.
And we know what the result of that was?
Palm Beach 3-0 winners. You can see the highlights on the Washing Line highlights
I did watch
show.
the highlights.
Yeah. Interesting highlights.
Very interesting. We did run into Karen Longbottom in the corridor.
Yes.
Who did say that? What did she say? That it was.
It was awful.
It was very atrocious defending.
Yes.
Except she didn't use very.
No.
So she used a different adjective. Won't say what she said about the midfielders, but
no, I think she was trying to stir. She was trying to use the media as a tool for her own purposes. Yeah. We're not going to follow that, Karen. We're going to listen to Jeff.
Yes, we are, and if you want to see what really happened, watch the highlights.
Watch the highlights. Both first goals to Palm Beach resulted more from East's mistakes, but it looks like Palm Beach could have scored quite a few more.
What Karen did say is what we all knew, is that Palm Beach were very quick. They got in behind fast.
Yes.
And the pace really struggled. Well, made East struggle in the game.
But the interesting thing about Palm Beach, another win, yes, but another clean sheet. That's 7 clean sheets out of 8 games. Now, just for comparison, last year, I love doing a comparison. Last year, after round 8, both the Gap and Redlands had conceded 6 goals apiece. They hadn't played each other at this stage, but by this stage, they'd conceded 6. Annalee had conceded 8. Palm Beach have only conceded 3. So, yes, they're scoring at will, but they must be doing something great in the midfield and the defence, that the only team to have scored against them is Redlands.
The Palm Beach are winning the ball high up the pitch. So the other teams are turning it over in transition from defence, which is what East were doing as well.
Yes.
And that's causing other teams a big problem and taking the pressure off the Palm Beach defence.
Yeah.
That's the way
they're
to win
doing
games.
Good. They're on top of the league. They're doing really well. Undefeated still.
It'll be interesting to see when they play UQ, which is not this weekend, the following weekend. Because I think there was a UQ spy down there watching the game.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised. UQ was third,
but all the coaches do. They all go around and watch the other teams. As due diligence, you got to know what you're coming up against. So I think it'll be interesting whether UQ can play the ball out through that Palm Beach forward press and put some pressure on the Palm Beach defence. Because their Japanese player, she's getting in behind, scoring goals.
But she didn't score on the weekend, which was in the last game. We'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, we will.
So that's the Palm Beach East one.
Yeah.
Redlands took on Olympic at Redlands, and Redlands were winners 3-1. 1-0 at half-time again, close score at half-time. Goals for Redlands for Holly Houston, Tatsuoka and Hatsuridos. Nat Tatham from Olympic.
If we had music, we could go something music. It's the Red Riding Report.
That'd be awesome.
It would, if we had a sponsor that could give us music.
Well, what we'll do
is get the producer to sing.
The silent producer.
Then it wouldn't be silent anymore. The Red Riding Report. It says, the home game was played in ideal field and weather conditions.
Okay.
Redlands opened the scoring with the first goal of the game by Michaela Hatsurodos.
Yep.
Around the 8th minute, so pretty early, and never lost the lead from that point on. Redlands scored the next 2 goals through 2 headers from corner shots. It's interesting why Tegan says corner shots.
Well, that's what they must be trying to teach them at Redlands. You just shoot for a goal from the corner.
So the first by Sachi Tatsuoka and the second by Holly Houston.
2 from corners.
So, 2 goals from corners. Olympics goal was scored in the closing stages of the game, giving the final result of Redlands 3, Olympic 1. The game was very tight throughout, with Olympic playing a strong defensive game, being able to close down a lot of the attacking plays of Redlands, and similarly Redlands' backs worked well together to easily handle the attacking plays of Olympic. The referee allowed the game to flow freely with only a small number of infringements.
Okay.
Tegan always puts in a little comment about the ref.
Oh, well, they're often unsung. So if a ref does well...
And she often says, good or bad.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tegan.
And the established Redlands team members returning from injury and availability this game, and a few of the new ones continue to play well. So she's being nice to everyone in the team. We've got to change that.
No.
A bit of stirring.
Well, mate, she's just easing into it. Whereas Karen Longbottom, she knows us for a few years, and she's gone straight into
let fly.
That's right. Yeah. But Tegan's going to work her way up.
I love Tegan's reports. They're good. And overall, it was just a hard-fought, solid game by both teams.
Yeah, it sounds about right. 2 goals from corners suggests, Olympic are obviously defending well, except for the set piece. And we know that. They do defend as a team very well.
Boring. You told me the other week. Boring.
Souths took on UQ, and boring is not quite the word I used. Souths lost that game 5-1.
They did. A big win to UQ.
But again, only 1-0 at half-time to UQ. And so another low scoring at half-time. So, it seems like teams are competitive for 45 minutes in the first 45, so that's a good start. I like that. And then just seems to get away from
It
quite a
does,
few.
and
yeah.
a lot of late goals, I suspect, in a lot of these games.
Does that mean these coaches, being one of these ex-coaches, did you do a lot of fitness work, or should you be doing more? Would you be tipping Mitchelton to do more fitness work?
Oh, they're probably bludgeon a bit now. But no, you do the fitness work, and this far into the season, you should be reasonably fit. I think that the girls are, as the gaps open up late in the game, as everyone gets a little bit tired,
Yeah.
so the gaps open up, and you can see that at any level of football.
You can.
And the girls finish. And, it doesn't take much to put 2 or 3 late goals
it doesn't.
And the score goes from 2-1, 3-1 to 5 or 6-1.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot worse on the team sheet than perhaps the game was up until, that last 10 or 15 minutes. Now, we all know that, we talk about things like the A-League where the Raw score a lot of goals late.
Play to the 95.
It's a tactic that teams use, that they just play shape until really late in the game and the results come. So it's 90 minutes of football. The games aren't won at the 70-minute mark.
No.
So you keep playing. So I'm not surprised to see the bigger scores. There's when the game's close at half time and continues in. It's when it's sort of like, a few times we've seen Taringa's results where they're 3 or 4 down after 15 or 20 minutes and the game's over.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's happened to a couple of the other teams as well.
Not just Taringa. Anyway, so UQ were only 1-0 up at half time. You've got a report from...
Well, Otters away.
Still.
So David Smith, the president's on the couch as well.
Yep.
So now, apparently last week we said he might have been a bit long-winded in his match report.
A little.
So he sent us 2 reports this week.
Read the first one.
The first one says, we won 5-1.
Oh, that's pretty short.
All single-syllable words.
So they teach some good stuff at uni.
He did send us option 2, which was even longer. Oh, it's very well written because David's a real wordsmith.
Oh, really?
It's a very nice report.
It's a good report.
And I was actually going to talk to our silent producers when we get some of these reports put up on the washing line because they're actually well written.
Fair enough.
So people can read the entire report instead of us just paraphrasing and picking bits out of it.
Picking the key phrases, yes.
Well, we picked the key phrases out of his. Now, he did say that Captain Gemma Noakes and Linny Johansson, the keeper, were overseas, so they were already 2 down.
Yep.
Now, the replacement keeper was a young girl called Katie Ronan, 15 years old.
15? That's young.
So that's making a debut in the top league.
Very young.
Player for the future.
Yeah. Only considered the one. Yeah. Not bad.
Did mention that South were behind the ball a lot, perhaps trying to play a counter-attacking game. He also mentioned that South seemed to have a tactic of man-marking Golden Boot leader Ai Matsusaki.
I love how he dropped the Golden Boot leader TM.
He did, yeah.
It's nice.
But he said that was working fine until Greta Bodie scored, shooting across the keeper. So she's got the first one. Obviously, he was being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, saying, well, South couldn't rely on that tactic anymore. But Shannon Boys stepped through the defence and scored another one, beating Julia Duffy in goal. He did say that Duffy was playing really well.
Duffy is a good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
She's a very good goalkeeper. Started at Daneley.
Did she?
She did.
Use that for a while,
Well, it's been a few years since we've had ex-Daneley products, but Julia Duffy started at Daneley. She went to Easts when she was probably not 18, I would imagine. Stayed at East for a few years, couldn't quite break into the top team in front of Danny Harbert. So she went to South 2 years ago, I think, and it's been there ever since. So
she's doing well.
Yeah.
South Stephanie White scored an impressive consolation goal with a long-range effort, David says. It was unstoppable, he said.
Okay.
But he said the South fight back was short-lived. And then Lindley Archer also shot wide of Duffy from a South mistake. And Bodie scored because a beautifully struck shot from wide on the left. See, he's got away with words, David.
Well, yeah.
And Georgia Chapman picked up a goal, he said, which was just reward for her hard work in the middle of the park. So a nice solid win by UQ.
And good for them in that they show the rest of the league they can score goals without Matsusaki.
Yep.
The other players can score goals as well.
Now, we do need to mention that this Saturday, UQ are hosting Mitchie.
Jeez.
But there are four women's games on. So UQ have got this celebration of women's football happening. So they've got junior girls down playing before the games at half time. So all afternoon and through into the evening, half time in the main game. Junior girls from under 6, 7, 8 through under 9, 10, 11 are all down there celebrating women's football. So it's a big day at UQ. Day. 4 games, 1 up, back to back.
Okay, well, we get a move on. The silent producer's giving us a look. Quickly, the table. Palm Beach on 22, UQ on 21. The Gap on 18, East's on 18, Redlands on 16, so that's your top 5, and a little bit of a gap opening up after that. Olympic on 12, Sunny Coast on 12, Mitchie also on 12. Goal difference separating those two quite clearly. Three. South's Power, Annerley, Thunder all on 6, Taringa on 3, Western Pride on none. So
that 7th spot, interest.
Yeah.
But the real interest is the top of the table.
Yeah, of course.
Palm Beach UQ in
next week.
Not this week, but the following week. So I'm not sure where that is.
That's
Palm Beach, I presume.
I assume so, yeah.
So that's going to be a big game. The Gap still got that game in hand.
That could push them up to where UQ is.
Yep. And then they've still got to play Palm Beach.
Yeah.
So it could come down.
Palm Beach still have lots of really tough games in. Yes, they're in the driver's seat, but it's not as if they're playing bottom half. They've got, after this weekend, they've got to play UQ, Gap, and Olympic. So, yeah.
It's getting interesting.
It's
getting really interesting.
Speaking of games coming up.
Just quickly, the games this weekend.
Yep.
3 p.m. Saturday at Kippen Park. Western Pride hosts Palm Beach.
14th versus 1st. I'm tipping Palm Beach for that one.
I'm tipping Palm Beach as well.
I think I'll get that.
At the other end of the city, 5 p.m. on Saturday at AJ Kelly Field at Power, hosting Sunny Coast Fire.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Sunny Coast recover.
And Power got some momentum from their win last week.
Yeah, definitely.
Could be an interesting game.
Could be. That's 10th versus 7th. So, important game for Sunny Coast if they want to stay in the 7. And Power, if they win it, they could be starting to eye off that 7th spot.
They could too.
It might be a bit far, but,
But still a couple of games left. Then over to your way, neck of the woods, Greg.
Annerley take on Redlands.
Yeah, at Elder Oval, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, I think.
Part of the double header, isn't it?
Part of the double header. I think Annerley will win this one comfortably.
I think you're dreaming.
Okay. Hopefully it'll be a good game.
I think it'll be good footy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Red Riding Report next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Tegan, I scored.
Maybe what you should do is get her to stay for the extra half of the game after and do a Red Riding Report of the next game as well.
I'll ask her.
That's a good idea. Just a half.
Just a little
Red
bit.
Riding Report and a half.
Yep.
Okay. East's take on Thunder on a Saturday at 6 p.m. So not a Friday night game for East.
No, it's Saturday. I was a bit surprised about that. Not sure why.
Yeah.
Can Thunder bounce back? I don't
East
think
for me.
so. Yeah,
but can East bounce back? I mean, seems to be tension.
Oh, yeah, the back line, the midfield, the strikers.
Forwards didn't score. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
At 7 o'clock back at Elder Oval, Olympic take on Taringa. Tipping Olympic there.
Yeah, tough night for the Rovers over there.
And at 7, UQ take on Mitchie.
I think UQ will probably win that.
Yep. Probably there, and that's important for UQ. And as you said, lots of women's football at UQ. Also at Annerley. Just putting it out there.
I'm just saying the UQ got all the juniors organised.
That's true.
So it's really good.
Yep.
And then the only Sunday game this week is 4 p.m. The Gap are hosting South United.
Yeah.
It's a tough road trip for South. Anyone going to the Gap's a tough road trip. But
yeah, definitely. Speaking of just those Saturday things, here's a day for you. You could start at 3 p.m. at Kippen Park, watch Western Pride take on Palm Beach, go to Annerley for a 5 o'clock kickoff, Annerley take on Redlands, leave at half time, catch East's first Thunder for another half, then take your pick of going back to Annerley for another half of football to see Olympic take on Taringa, or then you can go to UQ by the busway. You can probably do all this by that stage of the evening, I'd need bus. UQ take on Mitchie. So you could see 5...
And then by the time you recovered, you could go on Sunday to watch the Gap.
You could. You could see a lot of women's football.
Do you want to see some women's football tonight? Because before I go, I've always got one little thing.
Yeah.
At 8 minutes past 11 tonight, tune into Fox Sport and you'll see Australia play Japan in the opening match of the Asian Cup.
That is exciting.
And they play again on Friday at 8 p.m. against Jordan and Sunday at 10 p.m. against Vietnam.
So when's tonight's game again, sorry? 11
It's 11:08 p.m.
Too late.
I think it kicks off about 11:15, so I think the coverage starts at like 5
11:08. Okay. Yeah. I'll set my clock.
So if you've got Fox, obviously the pubs are shut and you're probably not going to be able to go to a pub and watch the game tonight. But Friday you could probably... There's no Friday women's games on, so it's probably a good night to go find Fox on a hotel somewhere and watch Australia play Jordan.
Yeah.
And do what I do. If they go in and the rugby league's on, you just go up to the bartender and ask them to change it.
Yeah. Put it on Fox, whatever it is.
Especially if the pub's got 3 or 4 TVs. Don't be afraid to go and ask them to change one to
Are you encouraging our young listeners, our young impressionable listeners, to go to pubs?
To watch football, yes.
Okay.
You're the one that said you'd need a bus.
Well, just because.
Just because.
Just because. Okay, well, that's all from us for this week, and we'll be back next week. We might have some guests coming soon because we've sorted out our issues.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.